And by the way, the women are always saving the men around here. You might want to think about changing the name to X-Women.
Poorly written female characters have literally caused several movie industries to lose hundreds of millions of dollars by having these horrible written movies bomb in the box office. I'm here to make sure your story isn't the next in line to flop for its horribly written female characters. You see, there are two ways that a writer can mess up female characters. The traditional way is to write the woman as kind of this one-dimensional character, and they usually just need to be saved, and they're like the stereotypical feminine woman. So to subvert this trope, the other way writers mess it up is by doing the exact opposite and making the female characters act like male characters and make them more masculine. Instead of being a damsel in distress, they turn them into this invincible badass. Both of these versions of the female character trope are the worst ways to go about writing a female character in your story. The sweet spot is somewhere in between and a little secret ingredient on top of all that. But first, let's go over what to avoid. Let's use Sakura as our example of a traditional female character. She's boy obsessed, she serves as the love interest to our main character, and she serves a support role. She's also one of the most hated characters in fiction for being useless, being annoying, and making fun of an orphan for being an orphan in front of another orphan. And everything I just said is actually not the reason why Sakura is a poorly written character. In fact, a lot of the things that I just said actually point to why she could be a good character. Making your character flawed and then eventually having them undergo changes which makes them change their ways is what makes a character arc interesting. It's okay for Sakura to be boy obsessed and to serve as a love interest. That's pretty normal for their age. As she grew up in Shippuden and developed throughout the whole series, her character arc should have been to realize her own self-worth. Actually, ending up with Sasuke and marrying him was actually a death sentence for her character arc. Pursuing and obsessing over someone who clearly doesn't have any care for you whatsoever is the exact definition of not having self-worth or self-love. She could have ended up with anyone else. Literally anyone other than Sasuke would have made more sense. Many people equate female characters being strong and powerful in battle to being a well-written character because they're not useless in the story. But that's actually false. Sakura being a support is actually totally fine, as long as she actually contributes to the plot by being a support, which she doesn't. She literally does next to nothing. She doesn't assist Naruto or Sasuke, and usually just ends up calling for backup from her teammates. In fact, one of the strongest characters in fiction is one of the worst written characters in fiction. Captain Marvel is actually really cool to me. Her powers, her design, it actually makes me kind of enjoy her movies. But other than that, her entire character is just a complete train wreck. Captain Marvel is a prime example of what it looks like to do a female character with no other idea other than the fact that she's supposed to be a strong female character. She's extremely powerful. I mean, she's probably the strongest Avenger we've seen so far, but she has no story or growth, entire plot whatsoever. And her problem comes from the fact that there is no obstacle for her to overcome, both literally and mentally. In her origin story movie, there was an attempt at throwing in a theme in there, and that was the theme of embracing your emotions. From the very start, she was told by the Kree to not be emotional and that humor is weakness. But none of this matters because Captain Marvel doesn't hold back her emotions. So there's basically no character growth to be seen throughout the story. She literally acts like a default Marvel character. She is not Captain Marvel, she is literally just Marvel, the embodiment of Marvel now. Just meaningless fights and quirky one-liners. Again, her having super OP powers is not the problem here. It's the fact that she has nothing to struggle against. And the final fight of the first movie is just so evident of this. Not only does it literally go against the theme by having the opponent let out his emotions and have Captain Marvel be extremely calm and show no emotion, but it perfectly illustrates how little struggle she went through throughout the story. The problem with her character is that there is never some connective tissue that links her and the villain and the plot together. The innate problem is actually that there was no character to begin with. They thought of her character design and her power and her gender above all else, before they even thought of what this character was and what they represented. If you were to describe Captain Marvel to me, you wouldn't be able to. Iron Man, he's a genius, he's very charismatic, and he has a huge ego. Captain America, he's loyal, he's very resilient, and he's a great leader. These tie into the stories and the growth they have as people throughout the span of the Marvel Universe. That's why we think of them as strong characters, because they have overcome their weaknesses and adversities and changed for the better. Captain Marvel has not changed at all, and at this point, I don't even know what could be done to even save her character. Basically, after seeing The Marvels, which is basically Captain Marvel 2, there was no story to tell. They just wanted to throw Captain Marvel into a movie. Female characters can be strong. They just need to have an actual story and plot to follow. And this brings us to my favorite modern rendition of the strong female character, Kimiko, aka the female. First off, she actually has a character arc to follow, which is the fact that the Shining Light took her in as a kid and forced her and trained her to kill, which causes her to have guilt over the past mistakes she has done. Very similar to Frenchie, her love interest, where they both feel like monsters for what they have done in the past, and they don't feel like they deserve better. So I can end the video right here, right away, just because right off the bat, having a character arc alone is already better than the two characters combined. But Kimiko is a very cleverly written character, because she breaks down all the stereotypes of the strong female character and does it even better. In one way, you may think she resembles a masculine, invincible badass like Captain Marvel. She is completely mute, so she's very quiet. And she's a very strong and skilled combatant. Quiet, skilled fighter. Sounds like a edgy shonen protagonist or rival. But Kimiko is not a masculine character. Quite the opposite. She wants to feel pretty and she paints her nails to feel like a normal girl again. Killing people makes her feel horrible on the inside. And the whole reason she can't speak is pent-up trauma from doing this in the past. She is quiet, but she is not stoic. She shows her emotions and her vulnerable side. On the surface, she seems like a stereotype of a character like Captain Marvel, just someone who's supposed to represent female strength. But Kimiko having all these characteristics while still showing her vulnerable side is what makes her an actual whole character and not just a trope. She falls in love with Frenchie, yet that doesn't take away from her character at all. It doesn't make her less of a strong female character. The new wave of Disney characters make it seem like a female falling in love makes them weaker somehow. And I think the boys intentionally make it so that the female members of the boys are actually the physically strongest out of all of them. The male characters actually play more of a support role when it comes to fighting, while the females do the physical hard work. It's a spin on the typical archetype, which really shows that both roles are important. Neither role of the fighter or the support is useless. Kimiko needs the boys, but not because she's a damsel in distress. And that's to show that men and women rely on each other. So regardless of what the role of the character is, they should just play that part. For example, if Sakura is going to be a support, she should actually contribute to the team and be a team player instead of just falling to her knees and crying out for help. If Captain Marvel is going to be this invincible badass, she needs to have some kind of weakness that forces her to undergo changes. Kimiko is both sides of the female character, which makes her whole. She has strengths and weaknesses just like every real person in real life. Her role in this series is significant. She has guilt over killing, but she does so anyway for the sake of her new family, which is the boys. And because they rely on her, she's put in this kind of contradiction that she needs to figure out throughout the course of the series. And having such a significant role in the plot is what really solidifies Kimiko as a very powerful and well-written female character. If you want me to help you write your story, I have a community full of dedicated writers, which also provides you with all the course material that you need to get your story idea started. And you'll also have direct access to me. And in addition to that, what's coming in the future is group calls, one-on-one calls with me, and a new course that's coming out very, very soon. And for the next 5 people who join, it is actually discounted right now for just $11, which is 35% off of the original price. This is literally the lowest this community will ever cost, and you will have access to everything in the future that comes out. So if you want to be one of those 5, click the top link in the description right now.